Jamie Joseph has named his Japan side to play 3 games in the June-July tests kind of window. They're playing the Sunwolves on the 12th of June, the British and Irish Lions on the 26th of June as part of their preparations for the Tour of South Africa, and then a one-off game against Ireland on the 3rd of July, which has a bit of added spice about it given the two met at the Rugby World Cup 2019. Now, Japan has not played since the Rugby World Cup 2019. Like South Africa and numerous other countries, they haven't had any tests. They were supposed to take part in the Autumn Nations Cup, but ended up not participating in that tournament. So it is a welcome return of the Japanese side, still under Jamie Joseph, as I mentioned. He's named a 36-man squad. I will go over the guys in the squad. Some of them I'm pretty familiar with from the Sunwolves, from the World Cup, from Japan. And some of them maybe I know from former Super Rugby days, and some are just all plain news to me. I have followed very little of the top league this season in Japan. They've just played the final, I think, this weekend gone. And yeah, I think all but 2 of these guys are currently top league players. So it's not like it's a bunch of guys from all over the world. The majority have been playing in the top league, so maybe that's a competition we all need to monitor a little more. But I'm hoping there's a few kind of diehard Japan fans who will get into the comments and maybe give us some insights into some of these guys as well. The side has hookers Sakate Nakamura and Horikoshi. Obviously, the main guy you used to look for was Horie. I'm not sure. I didn't read that he's retired. There's been a few retirements in Japanese rugby, which I am aware of. Horie, I'm not sure. Again, if anyone does know, do let us know. But Sakate is the main guy who we should know before. He's in his late 20s. He's had quite a few Japan caps before. The other 2 guys, Nakamura, I think he's going to be a debutant if he gets some game time. And Horikoshi, from what I looked up, has only played 2 games for Japan as well. So maybe a little bit of an experience gap, but Sakate, I would imagine, is going to be the #1 guy. Props, Inagaki, Avalu, Kakinaga, Ku, Miller, and Morikawa. Inagaki is one of the more experienced guys as well. I think he's probably one of the better props in the world, man. Honestly, I've been watching him prop scrums for quite some time, and I've never been disappointed by the shift that he puts in. I'm thinking back to the Rugby World Cup. I'm sure I picked him in some kind of dream team because he was just putting in an absolute shift against, as always, much more kind of, I don't know, vaunted, is that the right word? Respected opposition. But this dude doesn't get the props for a prop that he deserves. He's a proper unit. Avalu is also pretty steady. We've seen him with the Sunwolves and with Japan, 14 caps. Kakinaga, I can't comment on 9 caps though, 29 years old. Jiwon Ku has also been around the block from the Sunwolves again, from what I remember. Craig Miller's a former Highlanders man. He links up with coach Jamie Joseph. He went to the Sunwolves, I think, once he didn't get a gig with the Highlanders, or maybe this was the career path he set on. From what I read, he is a beneficiary of that residency rule kind of being pushed back. So he wouldn't have normally been Japan qualified based on time served if that rule had kicked in, but he is because he's under the 3-year rule. He's 30 years old, solid, and Morikawa, I don't know that I've seen him play, also an uncapped guy, 28. So there's maybe a bit of a lack of experience, but Avalu, Inagaki, and Ku, certainly pretty familiar names to anyone who's been watching Japan kind of in recent years. Locks, Mark Abbott is a new call-up. He will get his debut at 31 years old. Former Hurricanes man, also played for the Sunwolves. Like, none of these guys, you got Vimpy van der Walt, Ue Hilu, and James Moore. None of these guys are proper units. Like, there's nobody topping 2 meters here. They're all kind of in the 190s, and Van der Valt's more like high 180s in terms of centimeters. So, yeah, no super tall timber, but that's something we're kind of used to watching Japan. I'm trying to think of that big South African fella who used to play lock and loose forward for the Sunwolves and for Japan, I believe. He was the only guy that I remember being over 2 meters, but I didn't see him in the squad. Probably should have looked that up before I started the video, but we're not backing out now. Yeah, none of these guys, apart from Abbott, are debuting, so they've all been in there and done that before, and they seem to get by. Like, they don't seem to be a country that relies on super tall locks to win their line-up ball. They prefer to keep the game a bit quicker. Loose forwards, Ozawa, Gunter, Cornelsen, La Buscany, Leach, Tatafu, Mafi, and Jimeno. They're certainly stacked for guys who play number 8. Absolutely stacked. I mean, Mafi and Jimeno, as far as I'm aware, usually pretty much always play number 8. I don't know much about Tatafu, but he has been capped by Japan. Leach can play 6 or 8. He's probably going to be at 6 with Mafi and Jimeno battling it out for the number 8 jersey. Jimeno is in with the Highlanders at the moment. He's one of the guys who's not currently playing in the top league, although he will go back there. And he's getting all kinds of plaudits here of with the Highlanders. He's getting turnovers, he's making good carries, getting through his tackles. He's a proper class player. Mafi had his troubles off the field, but when he's on the straight and narrow, he is an absolute workhorse player. Generally likes to get a bit of a kick receipt and just run the ball straight back to the opposition. He was the Rebels' best player for at least I think a couple of years when he was playing in Super Rugby as well. He is 31 years old now, so I'm not sure if he's still got that same engine about him, but I can't imagine he's changed a whole heck of a lot. Lapis La Buscany is also another high work rate player, gets through 1 million tackles a game. That's just kind of what he does. A lot of talk about Ben Gunter. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that much of him. I think he did play a bit with the Sunwolves, bit of a turnover merchant. Cornelsen, Australian as well. Played in the NRC, but I don't know. Since he's gone to Japan, I haven't seen much of him. Likewise, Ozawa. But yeah, they're certainly stacked with loose forwards. Scrum Halves is another one where you're kind of missing maybe some of the more familiar names. You got Arai, Saito, who are both uncapped, and then Shigeno, who's the more familiar guy with like 10 caps and in his 30s. Arai is apparently in his late 30s, but the guy, from what I've read, this is me just spouting what other people have written online to get excited about, is Saito. He's a young man, 23 years old, and apparently just a proper hot prospect player, came through university system, and is supposedly going to be giving Shigeno a run for his money for the top job. So fingers crossed, he's a good player. Insights welcome. Tamura and Matsuda are kind of the familiar guys who'll run the show at 10. Tamura traditionally has been the guy, but he is 32, so maybe Matsuda needs some minutes as well. Although, don't they play him in the midfield from time to time? Maybe that's a long time ago. Speaking of midfielders, Shane Gates will be a debutant if he gets his run. I can't remember. Do I know him from the Kings or from the Sunwolves? I definitely know Shane Gates, but I haven't seen him since he's been playing in Japan. Nakamura and Lafaele are both pretty familiar hands. Lafaele played a couple of years with the Sunwolves as well. Wingers, there's a whole bunch of debutants. Emi, Fifita, Masarewa, all uncapped. Masarewa is the most exciting pick for mine. He has just got one of the best steps in the game. Steps off both feet really well. Fijian born, played for the Force, played for the Sunwolves. Just like an absolute... His numbers when Super Rugby was a thing and he was playing for the Sunwolves were just absolutely monstrous. So great to see him on the international scene. I think he probably could have played for Fiji. I don't know if they called him up. I feel like he ignored calls up from Fiji, but I could be mistaken because Fiji's got heaps of good wingers. Fafita, I don't know much about him. He's the youngest guy in the squad at 22 years old, but I looked up his height and weight. 6'2", 110 kilos. So he looks like a bit of a unit as well. Matsushima is the other guy out of Japan. He's playing for Clermont and been playing really well in the Champions Cup if you've seen him scoring tries. Lemeki is also a bit of a unit, but he's getting on. 32 years old, played for the Sunwolves a lot. So there's plenty of choices in the loose forwards, plenty of choices for wingers. Vandenhever and Yamanaka are guys who traditionally play fullback as well. Vandenhever will be getting a debut at 32 years old if he comes and gets a start. But yeah, it's certainly a mix of youth and experience. Like I mentioned, Horier, there's no Luke Thompson, who obviously retired after the World Cup because he was in his late 30s at the World Cup. He'd be in his 40s by now. Tanaka, the halfback, I think, likewise, maybe getting a wee bit long in the tooth. Fukuoka's retiring from rugby to go to medical school. So there's a lot of kind of familiar names absent and quite a few new names in. There'll be talk about the number of guys that are qualifying on residency, the likes of Masarewa, Gunter, Cornelsen, Shane Gates, but there seems to be a fair bit of Japanese talent with Arai, Saito, the hooker Nakamura as well. So, yeah, hopefully, Jamie Joseph's a pretty smart coach. Hopefully he gets a good shift out of these guys. I know Tony Brown, his assistant, who's the current head coach of the Highlanders, has gone back to help out as well. They don't have a heck of a lot of games, like not a lot of prep, just the one game against the Sunwolves, straight into it against the British and Irish Lions. But then again, the British and Irish Lions will be pretty... I mean, they'll have had games in the Six Nations recently, but as a team, they'll be pretty fresh as well. So that's maybe kind of a level playing field. And then, as I mentioned, the match against Ireland. Ireland will be without their Lions. So it should be a pretty tasty one. But yeah, as I said, heaps of guys I'm not all that familiar with. Some of these guys I've seen a few years ago. Haven't seen them recently in the top league because I didn't see a heck of a lot of the top league. Very little. Like within 2 games I think I saw of the top league this season. I've still got the final to watch. I know the result, but hopefully sometime this week. But anyway, yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, insights. As I said, very much welcome. Who else should we be looking out for if you have been watching the top league? Who's been playing really well? Any other guys dropped or otherwise unavailable that you care to mention? Please do so. Most welcome. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.